So namaste everyone. I Saptarshi Bose, behalf of Vivekananda Study Circle, IIT Madras, welcome all of you to this special lecture. Who am I? Attaining the self through the timeless preaching of Sri Ramana. So at the first, we shall begin the session with Shanti Mantra. So I request everyone to kindly stand up. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinamadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Asato ma Sadgamayam Tamaso ma Yotirgamayam Mritturma Amritadgamayam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yeah, kindly you can take the seat. Now I kindly request Dr. Ramana to come on the stage. Please, sir. Yeah. I request our volunteer, Sai Kiran, to facilitate our guest. Now I request our faculty coordinator, Professor Ravi Shankar Kottada, to introduce us to Dr. Ramana.
Thank you, Saptarshi. Good evening to all of you. It's my privilege and honor to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Venkat S. Ramanan is the fourth president of Sri Ramana Ashram. He succeeded his father, Sri Sundara Ramanan, in July 2020. He is the great-grandnephew of Sri Ramana Maharshi. He received his medical training of MBBS and MD General Medicine from MS University, Vadodara, Gujarat. He trained in USA and received the degree of AB Internal Medicine. After running his private practice for 25 years in Maryland, USA, he has returned to serve the ashram with his family. And I request him to deliver this lecture. It will be a wonderful lecture for all of us to hear from him. I mean, he come back from US to dedicate himself to the Ramana Ashram. It's a great thing. Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya, and my salutations to the blessed Atmans who have taken the time out to be here on this long weekend. And it gives me great pleasure to be amidst all of you. And thank you, Swamiji, for running this beautiful program and continuing this, because the youth are the true foundation of our country. And in having lived in a significant part of my life in the West, and having seen so many brilliant minds from IIT over there, the people who have done really well in their lives are not the gold medalists, but the ones with the background of Indian philosophy. They truly live rich, beautiful lives. Along with material prosperity, they really are able to handle the ups and downs of the professional life because of the spiritual background that they get from programs like the Vivekananda Study Center. Today, the topic we have chosen is Who Am I? Attaining Self-Realization Through the Timeless Teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. Now, I modified the topic just a little bit, and I'm going to make it an audio-visual talk. And I request, and I'll be available to take questions, and please fire it away. And so let's start. Unveiling your true self. Now, why I chose unveiling? Because as we go along, this teaching is more a method, not a learning, but a process of unlearning. And as we go along, we'll see what Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi said. The fundamental truth is we are all self-realized. We just don't know it. We just let all kinds of impurities of the world, external world, our vasanas and all, to cloak and uncloud our pure Atman to shine forth. So this self-realization process is actually a process of unveiling, where when we remove the impurities, what is left behind is the eternal Atman. And so these are based on the timeless teachings of Ramana Maharshi, based with its solid foundation on Advaita Vedanta through his personal experience. And this is for youth seeking permanent happiness. And we welcome everyone to the gates of Ramanashramam, which always is waiting 24/7, 365 days to welcome one and all. So I'd just like to introduce Sri Ramana Maharshi was born in 1879 in a town called Tiruchuri in Madurai, near Madurai. And at the age of 16, 17, he moved to Arunachala. And he did not move from Arunachala for the next 54 years. And as you know, he's a revered spiritual teacher and who emphasized self-inquiry, Atma Vichara, as it's called in Sanskrit. Friends, his teachings transcend religious boundaries, offering a universal approach to self-realization for one and all. His guidance remains relevant in a world facing new stress, alienation, and loss of spiritual connection. And this is the shrine from outside of Ramana Maharshi. And we feel his living presence every day, because as he re-emphasized and emphasized again and again, we are not the body. And what is we think is the ourself is the eternal Atman, which never is born, never dies. So we feel the living presence of the Master every day, and where he answers questions for one and all, and he transfers his experience to the true seekers. The teachings of Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi provide clarity and purpose in today's complex world. His simple yet transformative ideas offer a profound guidance for the youth. So in the next few minutes, I want to explore along with you how his wisdom can help young people lead authentic and meaningful lives. And this is one more You can see a peacock, and so there are in the ashram there are rich fauna, animals, and it's nestled at the foothills of the holy hill Arunachala. So, friends, why are we constantly seeking happiness and validation? Sri Ramana Maharshi reminds us because happiness is our true nature. So, and in fact, when and the eternal Atman being inside each one of us, and that's why we feel ourselves to be eternal. When people, because we transcend the boundaries of body, and there's nothing wrong in seeking happiness. In fact, without, as Ramana Maharshi would joke, if headache was your original nature, you would not seek to remove it. So, but then we want it to be removed because it's not our original nature. But happiness is our original nature, and of course, Vedanta will say Satchitananda. So, it's the true happiness. The self is always born happy and remains so. And Ramana Maharshi says it is not wrong to desire it. What is wrong is in seeking it outside when it is truly inside 24/7. And self-realization is nothing but discovering the source of this lasting peace which gives you the true happiness within each one of us. And this is the holy hill Arunachala with, you could see the Arunachaleswara temple, and so with, in all its glory. Now, I will rephrase the talk in two ways. I will try to talk about his teachings, and then I will conclude with why it is relevant and why it is ever fresh and eternal, and why without any proselytization, Ramanashramam attracts people from over 120 countries to its doors. So, because people everywhere naturally seek happiness, and then they find through their inquiry Ramana Maharshi's teachings, and they come to Arunachala. So, the relevance of his teachings, which will always be eternally fresh, because it addresses the search for meaning in a materialistic world, and the practice of this teaching reduces stress and enhances the mental health. It promotes unity and harmony in a ever divided world, and it encourages simplicity and non-attachment. Now, this is again the hall we call Old Hall, which is very revered by the devotees of Ramana Maharshi, where he was present there 24/7, and devotees feel they get the deepest meditation while they sit there. Even people who have never meditated, we hear stories. They spend hours. They just go in and they're just able to. They forget the world. So this is in Ramanashrama. It's a small hall, and we call it the Old Hall. So. The core teachings of Sri Ramana Maharshi. His Ramana Maharshi's focus is to make everyone like him. He came to make us all Ramanas, and so he gave his whole experience in the form of teachings to each one, and the core fundamental is teaching is two fundamental questions which I'll dwell in. Is the fundamental question is who am I and whence am I? And the importance is on practice, on Ramana Maharshi's. It's on Atma Vichara, self-inquiry. And silence, he taught in silence. And silence is a powerful teaching tool in this process. And of course, the illusory nature of the world, which is Maya, is also one of the foundational concept. Friends, what is self-realization? Self-realization is not about achieving something new, as I mentioned, but to realize your ever-present true nature. It's like a diamond buried under dirt. The self is uncovered through constant introspection. In the words of Bhagavan Ramana, you're already that which you seek. The ego is the root of illusion. The ego, also called ahamkara, falsely identifies with the body and mind. It creates a false sense of I and mine, leading to suffering. To use a modern analogy, it's like a social media filter distorting reality. And Bhagavan Ramana says, if you search for the existence of the ego, it disappears like a phantom. Friends, I'd like to take a few minutes and will like to explain the concept, and please, we'll have discussions if you need. So, the Bhagavan Ramana's foundational actual practice of self-inquiry is based on a few foundational concepts. The first one is the bringing the attention to the I thought. And by the I thought, I mean the false I. So Bhagavan Ramana taught that the ego is nothing but a bundle of thoughts, and the root of which is the I thought. We all experience in deep sleep, don't we? When we are egoless and we are thought-free, how even high-achieving IITians look forward to a deep sleep, right? If you go for 2-3 days without sleep, you're not the bright boys and girls that you are. So it's such a beautiful analogy that Ramana Maharshi brought, that in deep sleep, because when in deep sleep there is no ego, there is no mind. That is what we all subconsciously look for. So it's a very happy state. And why is it a happy state? Because in that there is no ego. So even the greatest tragedy or a pain cannot touch us in that blessed state. The moment we wake up, the first thought that springs up, unfortunately, is the I thought, the thought which is associated with the ego. So just to give an example, then, this morning I woke up with a feeling, oh, I'm Dr. Ramanan, and I have to go to IIT, I'm going to meet all people, and so something, and then a story builds up in our head, and next thing we know that, and things like that. Oh, I hope the students are happy with my performance. But what is really common to all these thoughts that flood our mind when we awake is that personal individual I thought that I attach my senses to, my little I. My whole existence depends on the survival of this little I thought. So this is what Bhagavan Ramana says in the Sentinel thing, 40 verses on reality. He says, when the I thought arises, all things rush in and arise with it. When it does not, there is nothing else. There is just bliss. So now we got the first concept of like isolating the I thought. Now, the next step Bhagavan Ramana asks us is to investigate the nature of this I thought. So again, as he says, thoughts alone make up the mind, and of all the thoughts, the I thought is the root. What is called the mind is nothing but the notion I. In Upadesa Saram, which is another of his famous work, verse 18, he says, for a thought to exist, it has to take a form. So holding a form, it arises, and holding a form, it stays. Holding and feeding on a form, it thrives. Leaving one form, it takes hold of another. And again, in the 40 verses on the verse 25, Bhagavan Ramana emphasizes this I thought, this ego thought, cannot exist on its own. It's a phantom. It needs thoughts for its existence. It's almost like a movie that we are a thing. When we give it life, our mind is which gives this little ego the existence, the energy that it needs. So again, I say, if I strip my little thoughts of Dr. Ramanan, IIT, happiness amongst the students, then there is nothing for this egoic I thought to feed on. So this is another clue that Bhagavan Ramana gives how to conduct the vichara. So we should really starve this I thought of all its props, the false energy that it gets from inside us. Then the third step is to isolate the I thought to its pure form. When it is stripped of all forms, names, likes and dislikes, and adjuncts, then what is remaining, and this process is called aham vritti in Sanskrit. This is only done through practice and detachment. And once you isolate this I thought, what is remaining is the next step. And once we isolate the fourth step is to then examine the nature of the isolated I thought. And then what we find is it is non-existent. And then what remains is the intense awareness of the Atman, what Bhagavan calls I, or the I awareness, and which is without the thought. Ramana calls this process aham spurana, where there is the bursting force of the Atman, the aham. It just comes out like a freshly dug well with lots of water. It comes to the surface. And his words, when unceasingly the mind scrutinizes its own form, it will see that there is no such thing as the mind. This is the direct path open to all. So, what we know by this, that what we think of ourselves is nothing but that we are all, what we think of ourselves is figments of imagination with no basis on reality. Now, again, coming to the next step, the fifth step, so stay with me, we are now with the who am I. Now we go to this whence am I. So where in the body is the false awareness? Whence is the mind? So Bhagavan says, with this questioning, initially who am I and whence am I? Whence did this I spring up? From where? By this constant inquiry, one turns inwards and searches where this false ego is in the body, and where it arises and clouds our true selves. And once we start doing that, Ramana Maharshi assures that this he calls this a phantom. Like a story that he gives is of an imposter in a wedding. As you know, there are the bridegroom and the bride's families are there. So an imposter comes in, and then he makes friends with one half of the people. And when they all start asking, who is this? He goes to the other party. And then when they start looking, this fellow runs away. So after enjoying his meals, enjoying the musical concert of a wedding, mehendi and all those, whatever we call it. But this is the analogy Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi gives. So once we start scrutinizing where this false egoic I thought arises and stays in the body, it will run away like the imposter in a wedding. And then what is there is just the truly invited people to the wedding where they can really have fun. So this is what he says, whence am I? Where in the body is this false I present? And then again, as I explained to you in the beginning, this is a process of unveiling. This is not like we're just removing the dirt and then we are just going deeper and deeper and just finding the blessed Atmans that we all are. And then Bhagavan Ramana assures that when the mind turns inward, seeking who am I, and merges what we call as the Atman, the true spiritual heart, the false I bows its head in shame, and the true I, the Atman, appears as itself. Though it appears as I, it is not the ego. It is reality, perfection, and substance of the self. And he calls this stage Aham Bodham. And this is the last step of attaining samadhi. And then the rest of our spiritual practice is staying in this state. So I'll continue the next steps, and anybody afterwards, if you want any clarifications on this, I'll be glad to answer any questions. So coming back, self-inquiry, who am I? Self-inquiry, that is finding the question, who am I? And is the core of Sri Ramana Maharshi's teachings. And why is it important is, it is valid for young people like you to help you to look beyond superficial identities and to discover your true essence. It builds confidence rooted in authenticity rather than external validation. As Ramana Maharshi is fond of saying, egolessness is fearlessness. It leads to a fearless state for each one and all. For only the ego is afraid of losing, failure. The true Atman, for that, there is no success, no failure, and no fear. Again, the nature of the self, who am I? Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi emphasizes that the true self is beyond the confines of the body, mind, and ego. The identification with the ego is what creates suffering and illusion. By inquiring, who am I, one can transcend the boundaries of the ego and realize pure consciousness. The path of self-inquiry, Atma-vichara, turns the attention towards the source of the I thought. And again, as I emphasize, it's a simple practice, but it's a constant practice which has to be done on a near daily basis. And the beauty of Bhagavan Ramana's teaching is, this does not need a temple. It does not need a big physical building. It does not even need a congregation of people. It's a one-on-one phenomena. It's an individual practice, and you can do that in between your lectures. You can do walking to your classrooms. Even in between waiting for one chapati in the cafeteria. While that, you can just quickly turn your attention inwards. So it's 24/7. You can do it anywhere. And again, as I said, you have to find where this false I is located in the body. This inquiry dissolves the ego. This dissolves the ego. This is categorical validation assurance given by Bhagavan Ramana and his own personal experience, and has been validated by many devotees who practiced his teachings very successfully. And again, this inquiry dissolves the ego and reveals the true self. Importance of self-inquiry, also what we call Atma Vichara. Self-inquiry is the most direct path to self-realization. In fact, a senior devotee would say, the path that one has to cover is from your head to your spiritual heart. So that's the journey that one has to take. So just realize, refocus our attention and find where our Atman truly is. And just so we escape the vicissitudes of the mind and all its cruelties and start living in the most spiritual way. It involves turning the mind inward and focus on the source of the I thought. Through this practice, one moves from external identification to recognizing eternal consciousness. Dissolution of the mind and abiding in the self. As inquiry deepens, thoughts dissolve of its own accord, because we are now stopped giving it the oxygen that it needs. And without that, the thoughts will start dissolving. And as the one goes along in this path, one does not even need to ask, who am I? Automatically, when you see something dramatic, you will just take a back seat and just not identify with it. And this leads to the state of mauna, silence, and samadhi. Again, to quote Bhagavan Ramana, when the mind subsides, the self shines forth effortlessly. And this is Bhagavan Ramana's samadhi, and just before prayer. And the golden hue, and that's where his shrine is, and this devotees in the shrine. Friends, silence as a teaching tool. Sri Ramana Maharshi taught through silence. He was truly, because his teachings was also imparting the experience to the devotees who came. And he used silence as a part of dissolving the questions. Swami Chinmayananda, another spiritual seeker, he said, Bhagavan Ramana did not answer questions. He dissolved them in the minds of the devotee. So it was truly an experience that he was able to. So once the questions are dissolved, the answer is there waiting for you. So again, silence transcends words and fosters direct experience of the self. In his presence, many experience profound inner peace and unity. Now, coming to the second half of the question, and why gives me happiness also to be amidst you, because truly because you can experience the self-realization only in the now. So the only true truth we all have is the now. So the past is no relevance. Future is the present now in a future tense. So why I'm talking about the now is the youth are really the now. We are all a little bit, I'm a little bit in the past. And so why it is this is an most experiential, our whole Sanatana Dharma is a form of experience. That there is theory, but it is an experience of the highest kind. And that is why it has survived through so many uh, uh, trials and tribulations. So coming back, why is self-realization relevant to youth? Because, friends, you are all, again, talking to the students behind. Uh, as you know, the only constant in life is change. But I would also say the only constant in life is your eternal Atman. So combining the two constants, you are going to see the fastest change ever that we have ever seen. And as a medical doctor in US, we used to say the half life of medical information. That is, if suppose you didn't pick up a book, how soon would you become obsolete? In the 70s and 80s was 23 years. So you could just get away with gray hair and showing experience. Friends, today it is 6 months. So if some doctor doesn't revise constantly or doesn't know the tools to update the information, they truly will be obsolete and outdated in 6 months. So you can see where this AI and your generation is going to really, on one hand, if everything goes well, it's a real fun life. You'll have more and more new things. But on the other hand, one thing you all have to wake up is constant change. So and that I'm sure will lead to fear and insecurity. So this having a profound spiritual background while you are observing the changing uh, reality around you will set you free from fear and insecurity. It will also give you a clarity in decision making. So I'll just like to give you an example. When you, on an average day, you get around 60,000 random thoughts. Say like, oh, this is a laptop, this Apple, how much this thing. But if you nip it in the bud, so you can reduce your number of thoughts to say 20,000. So think of the mental energy that you can, even the practice of self-inquiry will do. So you will have the energy of the 40,000 random thoughts, which you can use for the knowledge of your engineering that you can bring into your job. So there will be a lot of clarity in decision making. So a lot of moving parts you can bring together and analyze it thinking on your feet. You'll also have confidence to face challenges with true inner strength. Like it's almost like you'll become a surfer riding a wave in the ocean effortlessly. Also, friends, you will search for meaning in a materialistic world. Modern life often leads to emptiness despite material success. Sri Ramana's teachings encourage turning inward to discover lasting fulfillment. Self-inquiry offers a path to inner contentment beyond external pursuits. And one following the Advaita Vedanta, Ramana Maharshi taught that the world is just a projection of the mind. The ego in the world arises due to the ignorance of one's true nature. Self-realization reveals the illusory nature of the Maya. So I'd like to just spend a few seconds on this. So what Ramana Maharshi said that the world is not Maya in itself, but without the presence of the self. He said the world by itself is Maya, but the world with the self shining forth is truly the world. So that's what I'm saying. It's not like so wherever we are, because the observer, what Ramana Maharshi says, the ulladu, in Tamil, is the true constant present. Wherever you are, you're going to be there, the observer. But the observer just mirrored in thoughts is no use. But the observer found with the eternal Atman, with the true self, will be able to experience the world in its true, pure joy. So the fruit of realization enables one to live with clarity and peace, because one is no longer bound by desires or attachments. Life flows effortlessly aligned with your true nature. Again, to quote Bhagavan Ramana, the realized one acts without a sense of doership, like a true tree giving shade to each one and all. So again, I keep re-emphasizing the illusion of the path, awakening to the self. The journey itself is revealed as an illusion. And if you truly, when you progress, you'll find that there was never a seeker or a goal. Because here there is no attainment, no seeker, no path, because what we were looking for, the self, was always there. The self, in fact, he says the self alone is, and everything else is just fleeting images on a moving screen. Friends, again, re-emphasizing that, as I say, modern life increases stress, anxiety, and depression. Self-inquiry helps one to detach from the stream of thoughts, reducing mental clutter. Silence and stillness cultivates mindfulness and, in fact, a state beyond the mind, and enhances emotional well-being. And then, once we realize that we are all only different on the surface, we find that we start uniting with diverse people. Sri Ramana's teachings transcend religion, culture, and nationality. His emphasis on the universal self promotes harmony and true compassion. Realizing the oneness of all beings fosters inclusivity and unity. It will bring us back to our true simplicity. Sri Ramana Maharshi advocated simplicity and freedom from attachment. Recognizing the illusory nature of desires leads to detachment. Non-attachment fosters lasting peace and inner freedom, true inner freedom. And again, when we attain that, we can manage our stress, ourselves. Emphasis on silence and meditation cultivates inner peace. It helps to manage academic stress, career uncertainty, and relational struggles. Silence is not the absence of noise. Silence is not the absence of noise, but the stillness of the mind where true clarity emerges. So we realize that all lives are interconnected and the self is universal. The same Atman in you is there in your colleagues, and that's what the interconnected begins. On surface we may all look different, but the true self is there in everybody. And it inspires youth to act with empathy and contribute to larger causes. And by promoting inclusivity, equality, and global harmony, then we realize that Vasudeva Kutumba, truly everybody in the world is just like us, because they're all part of the same universal self. We get detachment. So Maharshi did not say, do not perform action. So that is a total misconception. He wants you to pursue your active careers, but pursue it without attachment to the results. You should accept the same results as getting a gold medal as not doing so well. So we should practice the same dispassion in both success as well as relative failure. So it helps the youth excel while reducing anxiety about outcomes. We are all worried about the outcomes even before the day the exam is announced. We start imagining our grades. But really, by this practice, we can get beyond that state. It encourages resilience and emotional well-being. And folks, Maharshi's life demonstrated the power of simplicity, that true happiness comes from appreciating what we have. It frees youth from the cycle of materialistic desires. We also go to a stage naturally where we start living ethically and start practicing compassion towards fellow living beings. Maharshi's life embodied humility, compassion, and truthfulness. It encourages youth to practice empathy and build relationships based on mutual respect. How can you disrespect anybody for they are just like you, just cloaked differently? It promotes self-acceptance and emotional healing. And again, accessibility and universality. Maharshi's teachings are universal, applicable to diverse aspirations. Whether a student, entrepreneur, or spiritual seeker, his insights provide practical guidance, and it's flexible and adaptable for various phases of life. So thank you for your attention so far. So I'd like to start summarizing. Self-inquiry reveals true nature beyond ego and body. Silence fosters deeper understanding beyond concepts. We recognize the illusory nature of the world, and which leads to true freedom. His teachings offer solutions for modern challenges. It is as fresh today as it was when he was physically present. And it empowers the youth with tools for self-discovery. They foster resilience, compassion, and deeper connection with the external world. By asking, "Who am I?" young people can unlock their boundless potential. Let us embrace his wisdom and create a harmonious future. Is my humble prayer to one and all. And thank you for your attention. And I'm just like to conclude. Thank you. Let's all abide in the self, and knowing very well that self-realization is not distant. It is available here, now, and for everyone. Inquiry leads to silence. Silence leads to peace. And again, my humble prayer, let us abide in that timeless, boundless awareness. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.
Thanks to Dr. Ramana for this very insightful lecture. I hope many of the audiences will be immensely benefited by these ideas. Now the floor is open for everyone to ask the questions. If you have any question, you can raise your hand.
I would like to start that. Frankly, I have not read Maharishi's works. Bits and pieces I have heard. What is his opinion about the Kula Devata, the Ishta Devata, and so on. Does he have anything to say about that?
Swamiji, thank you for the question. And before I answer your question, I want to invite each one and all of you to the ashram. It's only 180 kilometers, and truly it's worth your time. So please accept this invitation. Swamiji, one of the Ramana Maharshi's profound, he would always say, God, Guru, and Self are one and the same. So truly, his concept was redirecting everyone to the Self. So he said that the God and Self are the Guru are one. But he was a proponent of continuing. He came down to meet each devotee. So if you some of his books, if you read, it'll be with highest academic spiritual discussion, and then with the bhakta he'll be talking about bhakti. It was not like, almost like feel like contradiction, but he truly believed that in bhakti and in worship. In fact, again, I apologize, I missed out the other part of his teaching. One is the highest intellectual, or the like a sharp intellectual process of who am I. But the other method, he said, was self-surrender or surrender to God. So he said there are two ways of killing the ego. One is finding the illusory method of the mind. But the other one, he said, was you give yourself samarpanam to God. And he said, what is the highest you can give to God? The true, pure version of yourself. So you give your own self to God. In fact, he would quote a Western statement, thine will be done, he said. And God alone you exist. And so he would say that, your surrender doesn't mean that has to do what you pray for. But the true worship is accepting what God gives you. And so in that, continuing in that same way, what can you give Paramatma who has everything? So that's what Ramana said. You give the pure form of yourself, the self, to him. So when you do that, in fact, and he says that leads to, in invocation verse of the 40 verses, the second verse is, there are two ways of conquering death. One is by finding that you are not the body, and that it's an illusion. The next verse he says, Marana Bhaya Mikula one. So that is, you surrender to Mahesan. So when you surrender to God in a true way, and in that surrender, your own ego disappears, and what remains is a good version of yourself. The ego is gone, and that will lead to. So there are two ways. He recommended self-inquiry and self-surrender, and the true way, Swamiji. So, and who can be a better bhakta than Ramana Maharshi? He lived at the foothills of Arunachala as a 16-year-old boy. He did not even keep a morsel of food. He just surrendered at the footsteps of the God. And then there are so many moving incidents where he would narrate stories of various things with tears flowing down his eyes. So, and he would and he would say that bhakti is jnana mata. So that is also his say. So he definitely recognize that as a form of a thing that takes us close to our Atman. But that is once you get closer, all you realize is all that exists is God and God alone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
go one by one.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.
So, pardon me, my understanding is very limited of Bhagwan Ramana's teaching, right? So, my limited understanding is that there is, when you start with who am I, you are doing the Tvam Pada Vichara, but the Tat Pada Vichara is somehow I am not able to understand. See, when we approach it from an ontological perspective, Manobuddha Hankara Chittani Naham is one part, but that reaching Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, right? So that bridge, somehow I'm not able to see the connect in Bhagwan Ramana's teaching. And what confuses me further is that this is also based in the Advaitic tradition, right? So can you please explain a little bit?
This is his teachings are based on totally Advaitic Vedanta, and as you know, he went backwards. He first experienced as a 16-year-old boy, and then he realized himself, and then went back over during his lifetime, when people would bring books to him and say, "Oh, this is my state, and this is the questions." Again, Bhagwan Ramana warns you against establishing a goal, or because there is nothing to be discovered here. What is again we are all marching towards achieving eternal peace and finding our true source of happiness. So he warns against using who am I as a theoretical concept. It's not a mantra to be asked or something, but it's only a question of refocusing our attention away from the external world towards the true, the self. And again, the beauty of Ramana Maharshi's teachings is there is less theory and more emphasis on practice. And one of the qualities he said that a spiritual seeker should have is dhiran. He should be a most brave and like a dogged kind of a person. The path is straight, but one has to keep at it, and that way you will over experience, you will get the feeling. But beyond that, I know I cannot use technical terms. All I would say is request you to not get caught in theory. He said, you just, and in the end he says, you have to even give up the books, because he said if realization was in books, the books would be self-realized. So it is just a signpost of, the knowledge that we get, and then doing the practice in a dogged daily way. Okay, I hope it answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you so much for this wonderful insights. My husband and I have been very fortunate to visit ashram, Tiruvannamalai, many times. And my question today to you, sir, is, like Sri Adi Shankara in his Guru Dakshinamurti Stotram, he says that, Om Maunya Vyakya Parakirita Parabrahma Tattve Vanam. Likewise, Bhagwan Ramana always said that, silence is the power, So can you please draw some parallels between Guru Dakshinamurti Tattvam and also, Bhagwan Ramana's way of teaching, if somebody is looking forward to attaining Shuddha Jnanam, the true knowledge? Thank you.
Yeah. So the Friday, Swamiji, in Ramanashramam, we have, the Tamil translations. He translated various, there are first 2 days, there are Aksharam Namalai, and the next day is the core teachings. But on Friday, there he translated Anma Bodham and, Dakshinamurti Sotram and Shankara's works, which we chant. And again, pertaining to the highest Vedanta and self-inquiry. So in that he says, that same Shankara and Dakshinamurti in me is teaching through experience. So, as you know, we in Ramanashramam, we feel that Bhagavan Ramana came to revive the Atma Vichara through silence, And again in the talks he says about how powerful silence is. And so he says that the energy, the source is what it comes, and then is the experience, then written word, and finally the spoken word. So he says, if spoken words can be so powerful, imagine how powerful this dynamic silence can be. And again, and in another ways, he says, if Dakshinamurti could not explain, he had to teach the 4 disciples, transmit the experience to them. Because apparently, for a year, Dakshinamurti spent teaching Sanaka and Brahma's 4 boys. They wanted to teach, learn about self. And they would kept having questions after questions. So finally he sat them down and transmitted through silence the experience through which they understood. So on this path of where experience is more fundamental than anything else, where we, in the recess of the silence, in the stillness of yourself, is in which you're going to feel your eternal nature. Not in this noisy world, you're not going to feel it. So you have to, it's a path of going inwards, and in the same Dakshinamurti's words, which Ramana lived through his experience, and we lived his life was his message. So, as you rightly said, there are true parallels between him and Lord Dakshinamurti. Yes. And finally, I would say there is in Arunachala Puranam there is a saying that Lord Dakshinamurti is eternally present on the northern cliffs, a northern slope of Arunachala, and so it's not an accident, sir, as we know in spirituality. Things happen. Why did he come to Arunachala and taught in silence? So there is just a magnification of the teaching of silence. So that's just my humble thought. Yeah. Thank you.
Any more question?
Namaskaram.
Namaskar.
What is Bhagavan's take on intuition? Intuition.
So, intuition can be divided into various concepts. So, we all, when we are caught in our state of mind and all, we call it the sixth sense, and we call it our intuitive intelligence. And or, as Bhagavan says in once we start practicing self-inquiry, the work goes on of its own accord. So the analogy he gives is, a child which goes to sleep, and the mother feeds that child, and next day morning the child wakes up and says, "Oh, you didn't feed me at all," but all that that the child did not was not awake to know it. So in fact, when we start on this path of sadhana, he assures in many places that work will go on of its accord, and there won't be any diminution of anything that you are meant to do on this earth. So the purpose, in fact this word is, the purpose of which you are put on this world will be achieved. So again, and you will make better decisions, sir. That was what my talk was also. When we remove the clutter of the mental clutter, which is always there in each thing we do, we remove that. So then the self guides us seamlessly. And I would say it is intuitive. But again, if you use the word intuitive again in a plain sense, it will just presuppose the existence of the mind, which we are trying to remove. So once we go beyond that state of mind, where the self is directing it, it is that kind of action or actionless action is the true action, sir. So I hope you're clear. Yeah.
So there will be one more last question.
ஐயா வணக்கம்.
வணக்கம்.
எனக்கு இங்கிலீஷ் பேசுகிற தமிழ் தான்.
சரிங்க.
நான் ரமணர் ரொம்ப காட்ஃபாதர்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ஆக்சுவலாக எங்கள் வீடு பெரிய வீடுலாம் கிடையாது, சின்ன ஒரு வீடு தான். டெய்லி அவருடைய பாடல் எங்கள் வீட்டில் ஒழிச்சிக்கிட்டே இருக்கும். அந்த பாடல் பக்கத்தில் இருக்கிறவங்களாம் கேட்டாங்க, ரொம்ப ஏன் இது மாதிரி காலை டைமில் அந்த பாட்டெலாம் போகிறீங்கன்னு. இல்லைங்க, எனக்கு ரொம்ப பிடிச்சிருக்கு, ரமணரை நேசிக்கிறேன் அப்படின்னு. சரி, எங்கே இருக்குன்னு ஆசிரமம்னு கேட்டாங்க. இது மாதிரி திருவண்ணாமலைன்னு சொன்னேன். அப்புறம் மயிலாப்பூரில் நம்ம சாயராபாபா கோயில் பக்கத்தில் சந்து இருக்குது, அங்கேயும் ஆட்ட சொன்னேன். போய் பார்த்துட்டு அவங்களுக்கு என்ன ஒரு அனுப்பு இருந்துன்னா, அந்த பாடலை வச்சு கேட்க அவங்க மாதமாக இருந்தாங்க. அவங்களுக்கு அந்த குழந்தை பிறகும்போது அந்த வலி பெயின் கெயின் எதுவுமே தெரியல அப்படின்னு ரமணரை நான் சொன்னேன். ரமணர் நினச்சிக்கங்க, அது எனக்கு ஒரு நல்ல ஒரு அற்புதமாக இருந்தது. அப்புறம் ஒரு பாடல் ஒன்று டெய்லி கேட்பேன்னு சொன்னல, அந்த 2 லைன் பாடலாமாங்க ஐயா அந்த பாட்டு? அத்தனை செல்வமும் உன்னிடத்தில், நான் பிச்சைக்கு செல்வது எவ்விடத்தில். அத்தனை செல்வமும் உன்னிடத்தில், நான் பிச்சைக்கு செல்வது எவ்விடத்தில். வெறும் பாத்திரம் உள்ளது என்னிடத்தில், அதன் சூத்திரமோ அது உன்னிடத்தில். ஒரு முறையாய் இருமுறையாய் பல முறை பல பிறப்பெடுக்க வைத்தாய். ஒரு வினையாய் பகவினையாய் கணங்கணம் தினம் என்னை துடிக்க வைத்தாய். பொருளுக்கு அலைந்திடும் பொருளற்ற வாழ்க்கையும் துறச்சுதே. உன் அருள் 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 என்று அலைகின்ற மனம் இங்கு பிதற்றுதே. அருள் நிறையும் அருணையே, ரமணர் என்னும் கருணையே, உன் திருக்கரம் என அரவணை தருளும் அதருள் பிச்சை பாத்திரம் ஏந்தி வந்தேன். ஐயனே என் ஐயனே, நான் ஒரு பிச்சை பாத்திரம் ஏந்தி வந்தேன். ஐயனே என் ஐயனே. அதுதான் ஐயா, சந்தோஷம் ஐயா. இன்றைக்கி அவரை பற்றி பேசுறதுக்கு அவர் அனுகிரகம் இருக்கிறதுனால தான் நான் இன்றைக்கி இங்கே வந்தேன், உங்ககிட்ட பேசுகிறேன். ரொம்ப நன்றி ஐயா, மகிழ்ச்சி, நன்றி. இதெல்லாம் குறை இருந்ததுன்னா மன்னிச்சிடுங்க.
Thank you very much. I once again thanks to Dr. Ramana for sharing these insightful thoughts. We always seek his blessings and guidance in our near future. Now I request our spiritual mentor, Swami Dhyanagamananda ji, to facilitate and give a vote of thanks.
गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेवो महेश्वरः, गुरुदेव परम ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. It's a wonderful gathering this evening, and listening to his presentation was like a meditation in itself. There were no undulations, no high-pitched emotional utterances. There was a cadence that continued from the beginning till the end in a manner, as we say, taila dharavat. Just as you pour the honey and then the honey drops without any break. Such was the presentation. And every sentence made sense. Minus tense. I made it up just this moment. It just came out. If Swami Vivekananda wrote a lecture, or I don't know whether he spoke about it or he wrote about it, on Buddha. He said that he is one person who did not have any cobwebs in his brain. Every other incarnate had some agenda to fulfill, had their own indoctrination to present. But it was only Buddha who did not depend on any of that. If only had he seen Ramana Maharshi, he would have been elated to say that he's also included into the party. Absolutely zero cobwebs in the brain. He made a very good mention about the learnings that we depend on way back in the 70s and 80s. For 2-3 decades, a person can carry on with the same baggage of learning. But in the present days, he gets outdated within 6 months. So what is the message here? The message that I take from this, his brief mention, is that the nature is teaching us what we are not. The more we want to hold on to something which is ephemeral, temperate, temporary, and impermanent, nature is going to come down heavily upon us and say that, no, you have to move ahead, you have to march on. So, we can find along the ways of Sri Ramakrishna or Swami Vivekananda and Maharshi of late, that we will get spiritual aspirants in teeming numbers, we can be sure of, because now is not the time for complacency. Hundreds of lives and thousands of lives have been taken in vain that possibly this brain doesn't know, but the passage the soul has undergone, it knows about it. There is a hunger that springs forth from within. He nicely brought out another idea that it accounts for the emotional well-being of an individual. That was a package. That was an advertisement, I should say. Just like an insurance agent, he comes and tells, you please take this insurance. You will get some tax rebates and then you'll get some brownie points and so on and so forth. But the real insurance is for the life. When the more he stresses on the life, the more the person may even get scared. Right? But that is the real purpose for taking insurance, for preparing ourselves for the eventuality. However, the tax rebate and all are there. So that emotional well-being, as what he said, and an entrepreneur will be a better entrepreneur. Even Swami Vivekananda, in his lecture on each is great in his own place. It was a wonderful lecture on Karma Yoga. I don't have to aspire myself to be something. In my own footing and standing, I can be the best of what I am. Not just what I am, what I should be rather. So he says a farmer will be a better farmer. And a fisherman will become a better fisherman. That generalizes for any profession for that matter. So likewise, the idea of following the so-called the spiritual tenets and the practices that have not been merely proselytized or mere doctrinated, but have got a resounding effect when we touch the lives of those people who have lived the life and had the experience. So that we had a wonderful opportunity to go through the vista of those experiences as well through the message, through the words. How from silence, from the ideation, from the word and to the sound. And further, it doesn't stop at sound. It again triggers back your idea. And there is a brief silence in which that ideation happens. Everything that is uttered are understood only in silence. It's just that we don't recognize that. All our understanding happens only in silence. Because otherwise the mind is busy doing something else. How do you justify understanding if mind is elsewhere? So the mere logic tells us through and through the silence only we are functioning. And that's the greatest catch which Maharshi picked it up. Somebody was referring to Tatpada Vicharacham and Tvampada Vichara. That's a very good question. It's a very good. In fact, when I stepped into this hall, I was wondering that how he would motivate the idea of a positive pursuit. A positive pursuit. There must be an Advaita as seen by, as at least presented by Adi Shankaracharya, is through assertion that you are the Atman. But then, question is that what is that Atman? You will find every definition of Atman is got out of negation. Only through a negating, that's the reason why the Neti idea has been a very central method of practice in order to realize the self. So there, the Tatpada Vichara is in practice, if we say, instead of asking this question, what is this Atma? Maharshi replaced it, who am I? Because me and the Atman are not different. Why should I ascertain it when I know it is it? When I know it is, I don't need to ascertain it. I don't have to assert, rather. Ascertaining is obviously something which will happen, but I don't need to assert whether myself, the son of my father, do I need to assert? There's no necessity for me to assert. But on the contrary, I don't know who I am. I keep assigning and aligning myself with lesser objectives. And the mind which plays this spoiled sport, what it does is, as rightly he brought about, 60,000 thoughts are going and cluttering the mind. Can I make an effort to make it 20,000? Can I still further it to bring it to 10,000? Now, that is the very essence of Gita. The question that we get in the Gita where Arjuna asks Krishna that what happens to this mind which is rent asunder? How to control this? He said, only through practice and by withdrawal. Vairagya. Vairagya here means reducing the thought. Now the reduction of the thought, how we do is, the Neti process gives the reduction of the thought. The moment we ask this question, who am I? The mind will come and tell, I am a man. The first idea that will come to us, I am a man. You say that you are not a man. If you are a man, then is it defined by your, for me, shaven head, and for someone else, grey hair, or for some fresh, lush growth of hair? What constitutes this man? Again, we go to details. And everything we have to reject. Only through rejection we can, I don't know what we will arrive at, but we will certainly not settle with something which is inferior. And that, this who am I, is giving us a wonderful impetus not to settle with any suggestion which the mind gives. And that is the continuous pursuit of, after the question of who am I. While the assertion is, I am the Atma, but not knowing what the Atma is, the most practical way to, as I see it, the most practical way in order to put an Advaitic thought into a practice is not having any assumption about our ultimate reality, but merely questioning our existence when our existence is immediate to us, which we cannot negate. Therefore, to the best of efforts, I think Maharshi has found a golden path for all of us to dwell on. And this is a very wonderful evening when we have been delighted to hear in very cogent terms without any contradiction, truth after truth after truth. And I really sincerely pray the Holy Trio whom I adore and the Lord whom all of us adore, that may He bless us. That's the reason why I asked whether He accepts Ishtadevata and Kuladevata. Because my prayer is going to now be given to that. So that He gives us the right frame of mind in pursuing in search after the truth. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. And this Vivekananda study circle is open to all, not only for Monisha, not only for Devanjan, not only for Atanu. There are 4-5 guys come. I invite you in open arms that please find yourself that those 1.5 hours on a Sunday morning, we will have a wonderful engagement in the journey towards our real I. Thank you.
Thanks to Maharaj Swami Dhyana Ji Maharaj for giving the vote of thanks and also describing few wonderful ideas. So we'll conclude today's session with Shanti Mantra. So I request all of you to kindly stand up. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishvate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sarve Bhavantu Shukhinah Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kasit Dukkama Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thanks to everyone for coming today. And as Maharaj said, please join to our VSC team. There are some refreshment outside, so please collect. Yeah. Thank you.